Continuing the investigation into the Delta plane crash in Toronto, Canada the other day, the TSB from Canada released some of these new videos here for us. So we're going to take a look at these and we're going to analyze that now. Famous video that you've seen a million times.
Oh! Oh, no, 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 no. Tower, you're seeing this airplane just crash into 3. Oh my god. Oh my god.
So the TSB just released some of these videos here just a few hours ago, and this is some of the clearest video we've seen yet of the upside down plane. So here the TSB is showing us a nice clear close-up of underneath the left wing that is still attached to the CRJ. Now it's got some damage on it, but you're going to see when they zoom out that you're going to see the flaps. So I don't know if the flaps were set before the crash landing or if it ended up like this afterwards. But look at both the front and this rear landing gear. They're both in great shape, but it was the landing gear on the right side that it collapsed. Okay, so let's take a look as the plane comes in here. I want to show you something odd. So, first of all, so this plane right here that was shooting the video, it was obviously from the cockpit of another plane. This little crossroad here looks reasonably clear, but the runway that the plane is landing on, our Delta jet here, it looks like it's pretty snow covered. Now, we're really not able to see, but I don't see that that runway is all that clear. Okay, but anyway, here comes the plane. Now, I want to show you something really interesting here. Even though you really can't see the surface of the runway, I want you to take a close look at this plane as it's sitting right here above the runway. And do you see anything that's wrong? Okay, first of all, I can't tell if the flaps are set or not. That it's just not a good, clear enough image there to tell us. And I know a lot of people had commented on different versions of this video that were appearing online saying, oh, the flaps weren't set. But I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing it just because it doesn't look all that clear. But what's the problem that you see here? So the problem is the plane doesn't have any flare at this current moment in time. Now, for those of you unfamiliar, if you've ever been on a flight, which all of us have, when a plane comes in at that very last few seconds, the captain will pull back on the yoke a little bit and raise the nose just a little bit like this. And what this does, that's called flare. You're just rotating up a little bit. And right as you're coming in to land, that creates just enough drag to help slow the plane down to make that safe landing. I mean, when you think about it, anyway, every landing of a plane, it's really a crash landing. It's an object falling from the sky. But this is a controlled fall because it's got forward motion and it's got descending motion, right? And the idea is to just make it just kind of boom, boom. That's why you still hit the runway. You can still feel it, that big bump when they hit. But it's a very controlled fall. Just like a parachute. When a parachute opens and you come down, you're still falling under gravity, but you're under a controlled descent. So here, we're not seeing that flare. And so that has me concerned. Where is your flare?
And
We need to talk about your flare.
my, flare?
Or, your lack of flare, because,
There's my flare. And this is me expressing myself, okay?
Okay, so now we're coming back and the plane is about to land. And so because it's not nose up, see, it's going to just smack down onto the runway. See, because remember, the plane is supposed to go like this and land on the main landing gear first on the wings, and then the nose is supposed to come down like this for that safe landing. But this isn't happening here. The whole plane is just smacking down. Right? So if we back it back up a little bit here and let it smack down there, what happens? It looks like you got your landing gear here in the front is fine. You have both landing gear here on the bottom. But notice on these CRJ planes how low the wings are over the landing gear. So that's another problem. But anyway, when it comes down, let's look at the right rear landing gear there. So it's coming down and it looks like it just collapsed. Because at this point in time right here, the wing is about to hit the runway. So there it is. It's hit the runway. and it's starting to ignite the fuel, and the wing is going to tear apart as the plane goes down the runway a little ways there, right? So now what's happening? So with that wing gone, look what's happening now to the left wing. This is the left wing on the other side there, because now there's no reverse thrusting going on. The plane is shooting down the runway like this. That left wing wants to catch some air under, and it wants to fly, and it's going to make it flip over. So that's what's exactly happening right here, is that wing is going to flip up and over. See, and now we're upside down at this point right there. The plane is upside down, and it's going to continue that way all the way down until it comes to a complete stop. And they are so lucky that it looks like most of the fire ended up behind them. And here's the other thing too. Look, as we go back and forth through this, I want you to look at the white part of the flames and cloud. See, I think it's kicking up a lot of snow. I don't think this runway is as clear as they were claiming it was. And even when you're done with the fire and all that, let's get past the fire part. Right there, see, I'm still seeing a lot of snow kicking up right there. Do you see all that? I don't think this runway was as clear. Now, can you still land on it? Yeah, probably. Could it just be kicking up snow from either side of the runway? Yeah, that's possible as well.
What we can say is the runway was dry and there was no crosswind conditions.
See, that's the part that really puzzled me, because I don't think the runway was all that dry. And there certainly was crosswinds. I mean, the reports I saw said that there was gusts up to 40 miles an hour. Now, of course, they're landing at an angle there, and you know you have to adjust for the angle of the runway and all that. But you can't tell me that there weren't any cross components of wind. Now, I still don't think that that would have caused the plane to slam down like it did. It just looks to me like it didn't come down at the right angle of attack. Was it problematic for them? Who knows? It depends on the skill of the pilot. But basically, you can see everything just came to a standstill right there. Also, here's a good close-up photograph of the CRJ lying upside down. And you can see the left wing there and the left landing gear still intact. You can see the cavity where they go into when they fold down. And then you can see the remnants of the right wing on the left side of the photograph there, and how the right wing just tore off of the plane. So as I showed you the other day in my previous video on this Delta plane crash in Toronto, this has similarities to that 2022 plane crash in Somalia. So why does it happen? Well, watch when it's landing what happens here. So it looks like, so I've slowed it down for you 4x. So some of the government reports that came out after this crash had stated that there was some very low level, low altitude wind shear that just sort of made the plane come down for a harder landing. And luckily nobody was hurt on this flight. They all got out okay. So some of the possibilities that I'm leaning towards here right now are maybe a little bit of pilot error, because the plane should have been like this, but it wasn't. It was like this when it landed. It had the wrong angle of attack. Now, maybe that was also caused by wind shear, so that could be another issue too. So wind shear may have come in, with a microburst and just forced down the nose of the plane. So that's another possibility. And then, of course, you have landing gear failure. So maybe the landing gear just collapsed on landing, maybe not from the harsh landing. Maybe there was just something wrong with it. But it does look like it probably was more on the harsh landing side of the equation here than it was just, well, it collapsed maybe for metal fatigue or something like that. So, Vince Neal's Learjet crashed last week in Arizona, and it had that same problem where the landing gear just collapsed after landing. But this one here, it looks like everything sort of happened at once as it landed. So I don't know. It's a little hard to tell on that one. But one thing's for sure is they've already got the cockpit voice recorder. They've already got the flight data recorder. And so Canada's TSB is going to be examining those and should be able to tell us fairly soon. Will tell us what inputs the pilots were giving in with the controls. We'll know exactly what they were doing. Did they flare? Did they not flare? The other question that I have is, I'm not really sure by this video, was the CRJ crabbing? So for those of you who don't know what crabbing is, that is when you have crosswinds, which we had here at this time, you have to come in at sort of an angle. You're not facing down the runway like this. you're coming in at a diagonal like this, and you're sort of gliding in sideways like a crab. So that's why they call it crabbing. And so what that does is you're pointing the nose sort of in the direction of the crosswind like this. And then at the last second, the pilot takes that rudder and turns it and makes the nose go straight down the runway. And you have to do a lot of tricks with the aileron. You have to know which wing is going to be the upwind wing and all that. And so it's a tricky maneuver, but pretty much most of these pilots should be able to handle it pretty decently. By the way, extra kudos goes to the flight crew here who safely evacuated people. Remember, when you have an emergency situation like that, you're given 90 seconds to evacuate that plane. But many of you may have seen the video, but did you hear how she was directing the people? So check this out. And she did a great job trying to get people to turn their phones off.
Everything, drop it. Come on. Don't take your video. That's on the right. On the right.
Hey, so let us know in the comments down below what you think caused this crash. And if you haven't seen our videos from the DC crash, you can start up here by looking at this one. And then after that, make sure you look at this other video here from the Philly Medjet, the one that crashed a couple of weeks ago. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see all of you on the next one.